Storytime. Okay, Storytime is a segment where people are able to submit their stories on my podcast and I read them to you all. Now, here's the catch. My team has reviewed all of these stories. I have not seen a single one. So my first time hearing it will also be your first time hearing it, and these will be my raw reactions. Today's theme is love and betrayal. So we'll be going over 5 stories with these titles. My best friend hid my husband's affair with my sister. My ex-husband is in love with my new husband. I married a billionaire, then uncovered my family's dark secret. 4 days before our wedding, his secret child changed everything. He met his new wife on our honeymoon. Hold on. Pause for the cause. Okay. You know what? Let's just jump into it. We're going to jump right in. My best friend hid my husband's affair with my sister. Before we get into it, I have to know, what would you do if your best friend kept a secret like this? Could you ever forgive her, or is she just as guilty as the cheaters? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I always believed my best friend had my back. I thought she was the one person who would never let me walk into a disaster blind. But on my wedding day, as I stood there glowing in my dress because I was cute, my hands wrapped around my soon-to-be husband's, she just smiled. She adjusted my veil. She told me I looked beautiful, like everything was fine. Like she hadn't known for months that the man I was about to marry had been sleeping with my own sister. Not for months, though. Okay, like one time, slip up, months, wild. She let me say I do. She let me promise my life to a man who had already destroyed it. And the worst part, she never told me. I had to find out on my own. About 6 months later, my sister, a few of her friends, and I got into a really bad argument. I'll admit, I said some things that I shouldn't have said, but it is what it is. The argument got heated, words were thrown, and then out of nowhere, one of her friends blurted it out. That's why your husband was screwing your sister before you even married him. Everything stopped as it should have, okay? I looked at my sister, expecting her to deny it, to call her friend a liar, to tell me this was some cruel, twisted joke, but she didn't. She just stood there silent. And that was all the confirmation I needed. I walked out of the room shaking, my mind racing. Who else knew? How long had this been going on? Had I really been the last to find out? I packed my bags that night and went to stay with my parents. I couldn't be in the house with him, not after knowing what I knew. I barely spoke for days. I just sat with the weight of it all, trying to process how everyone I trusted had betrayed me. My husband tried to call. My sister sent messages. Tasha, she didn't even bother. And that silence from her, it told me everything. After a week of sitting with my thoughts, I knew what I had to do. I filed for divorce. I blocked my sister on everything. She didn't even try to reach out. Not that it would have mattered. And as for Tasha, I met her in person one last time. You were like a sister to me, I told her. But my sisters don't do what you did. She didn't argue. She didn't cry. She just nodded. And that's how I knew she had made peace with betraying me long before I ever found out. So I walked away. And you know what? I don't regret a single thing. Because for the first time in my life, I finally saw people for who they really were. And I swore to myself, I would never, ever let anyone play me like that again. All right. That's the end of story 1. Let me know in the comments who you think is the actual villain in this story. Is it everybody? Is it the sister, the husband, the best friend, the sister's friends? The parents had to knew something was going on. Everybody a villain. I'm convinced. Story 2. My ex-husband is in love with my new husband. Before we dive in, tell me, would you stay friends with an ex who kept a secret like this? Or is it a hard no? Marcus and I had the kind of love story that people envied. We met in high school, went to prom together, survived the long nights of college stress, me studying to become a teacher, and him diving deep into the world of data analytics. By the time we were 25, we had 2 kids and a picture-perfect marriage, or so I thought. Marcus made good money, really good money. And by the time our third child was born, he told me I didn't have to work anymore. Praise God. You've done enough, babe. Stay home with the kids. I got us. And he did. He retired me. That's a good man, Savannah. I hadn't worked in years, no recent job history, no income of my own, just the home and family we built together. But then little things started to shift. Marcus worked late more and more. He stopped touching me. At first, I thought he was just stressed, overwhelmed with work. But when I went through his phone one night searching for proof of another woman, I found something much worse. The text. Avery. Avery wasn't a woman. Avery was a man, and my husband was in love with him. I wish I could say I threw the phone at him, screamed, demanded answers, but I just stood there, staring at the screen, rereading the words over and over again, waiting for them to change. I can't stop thinking about you. I wish I could hold you tonight. I love you. I waited until he came home, waited until he stepped into our bedroom, until I saw that look on his face, the guilt that he didn't even try to hide. How long? I asked. Marcus sighed like he was relieved, like he'd been waiting for this moment. Since before we even got married. And that's when my whole world shattered. Okay. People love to say, if my man ever cheated, I'd leave. But let me tell you something. When you have no job, no savings, and 3 kids to feed, leaving isn't as easy as people make it sound. Dang. I went back and forth in my mind for months. Wasn't marriage about for better or worse? Could I fix this? Could we just go back to how things were? But the reality was Marcus was never mine to begin with, and I deserved more than a man who stayed with me out of obligation. So I did the hardest thing I've ever done. I left. The divorce was civil, mostly because Marcus felt guilty. He made sure I was financially stable, helped me find a good job, and even got me a place to stay with the kids. We weren't enemies, but we weren't friends either. For years, we only spoke about the kids, pickups, drop-offs, birthdays, school events, and slowly I healed. I got my confidence back, I got my life back, and eventually I found love again. Jordan was nothing like Marcus. He was soft where Marcus was hard, open where Marcus was closed off. He made me feel like I was truly seen for the first time in my life. I married him 2 years ago, and that's when Marcus changed. At first, I thought he was just being extra friendly, trying to be a better co-parent, but then I noticed how he looked at Jordan, how he found any excuse to call him, to ask for help, to stop by unannounced, and then one night, after a few drinks at our kid's birthday party, Marcus pulled me aside and whispered, "I think I'm in love with him." Y'all, what am I supposed to do with this? Should I say something to my husband? Should I just let Marcus deal with his feelings? What are we supposed to do with that? I don't know. What are y'all doing in that situation? Let me know in the comments. Story 3. I married a billionaire and then uncovered my family's dark secret. You won't believe how deep this betrayal runs. Imagine finding out your marriage was a complete lie, orchestrated by someone who was supposed to protect you. I had always lived in a world of excess, lavish vacations, designer wardrobes, private jets. My family was filthy rich, and with that came expectations. Every decision I made, every move I took was under scrutiny. The perfect daughter of a powerful empire had to act accordingly. But I had never been perfect. I had always been difficult. Rebellious, outspoken, unwilling to play the role of the obedient heiress. I had been in and out of scandals, nothing major, but enough to make my father furious. My father, RC, she put his name, we gonna blank it out, was a man who valued power above all else. His family name was everything, and if my behavior continued, it wouldn't just be an embarrassment, it would be a threat. So when I met Jay, it felt like fate. Jay was charming, wealthy, and powerful in his own right. We met at a high-profile charity gala where he effortlessly made me laugh, complimented my mind as much as my beauty, and made me feel truly seen for the first time. He was, in every way, perfect. Within months, we were inseparable. I'd never fallen so hard so fast, and Jared, he seemed to adore me, always saying he loved me for who I was, not what I had. So when he proposed, I said yes without hesitation. It was everything a girl like me had been raised to dream of. wealth, status, and a man who adored me, or so I thought. It wasn't until after the wedding that I started noticing things. Jared was always on edge. He had access to all of my family's wealth, but he never spent his own money. He seemed to be strangely close with my father, always having secret meetings with him that I was never invited to. And then there was a letter. One night, I found an envelope slipped under our bedroom door. No name, no address, just one single sheet of paper with the truth that shattered my world. Your husband was paid to marry you. Ask your mother if you don't believe me. At first, I thought it was a cruel prank, but something inside me twisted with doubt. I confronted my mom, expecting immediate denial, but instead she just sighed, poured herself a drink, and said, "You were never supposed to find out." That's when I learned the truth. My father had been obsessed with me for years. It wasn't just the overprotectiveness or the control. It was darker than that, twisted. My mother had known, had seen it, and rather than confront it, she had come up with a plan. Pay a man to take me off my father's hands. Enter Jay. Okay. He was never a billionaire. He was a nobody, a charismatic con artist who had agreed to the deal because of the money. The wealth, the power, the lifestyle, it was all an act. The grand gestures, the fairy tale romance, the expensive gifts, it was all orchestrated by my own parents. I was just a transaction. Listen, this is giving book a little bit. If y'all are submitting stories just because y'all think they wild, we want to hear like real stories. It's a wild story nonetheless, so I'm going to finish it. But yeah, we want to hear your actual stories. Okay. I was just a transaction. I felt sick. My entire marriage was built on a lie, and the man I thought loved me, he was nothing more than a well-paid puppet. When I confronted Jared, his mask slipped for the first time. He didn't even deny it. Did I take the money? Yes, he sighed. But somewhere along the way, I think I actually fell for you. I felt something inside me snap. The anger, the humiliation, the complete and utter betrayal. I could expose them all, destroy my father, ruin my husband, walk away from the family name, and finally be free. But could I survive without my family's money? Without the security I had always known? That night, I packed a bag, but before I left, I did something none of them saw coming. I emptied out every account Jared had access to. If he had married me for money, he was going to leave with nothing. That's right. Take it all. So tell me, what would you have done? Okay. First of all of us wish we were billionaires. So let's just put that out there. Completely get it. I know. I am with you there. But had your parents set you up with somebody and you didn't know? So like arranged marriage, but like you had no clue. What you doing? Story 4. 4 days before our wedding, his secret child changed everything. My husband received a letter 4 days before our wedding telling him that he had a child. Had a picture of the baby, and the baby literally looked just like him. That might be grounds for divorce, and we ain't even married yet, but I'm going to continue. 4 days before my wedding, I thought the biggest thing I'd be worrying about was last minute decorations. Instead, he got the letter. Inside was a picture of a woman holding a baby that looked just like him. 4 days before my wedding, I thought the biggest thing I'd be worrying about was the last minute decorations. Instead, my fiance got a letter. Inside was a picture of a woman holding a baby that looked exactly like him. What would you do if this happened to you? Because I still don't know if I made the right choice. My husband received a letter 4 days before our wedding telling him that he had a child. It had a picture of the baby, and the baby literally looked just like him. I had spent over a year planning my wedding to D. The venue, the flowers, the guest list, it was all set. In just 4 days, I was going to walk down the aisle, say I do, and start the rest of my life with the man I loved. But that night, D checked the mail and found an unmarked envelope addressed to him. When he opened it, his face went white. Inside was a letter and a photograph. I looked over his shoulder and felt my stomach drop. The picture was of a woman, one I had never seen before, holding a baby. And that baby looked exactly like D. Same jawline, same nose, same dimple in his cheek. The note was short. This is your son. He deserves to know his father before you start a new life without him. I could feel my heart pounding. D, I whispered, "Who is she?" His hands trembled as he set the letter down. "It was a long time ago," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I stared at him. "How long ago?" He wouldn't look at me, and that's when I knew. It was during our relationship. I forced myself to breathe. "D, tell me everything right now." He ran his hands through his hair and finally looked me in the eyes. "It was a stupid, drunken mistake," he said. "I went out one night with a friend from high school. He wanted me to be his wingman, and we ended up hanging out with these two girls. I had too much to drink. I don't even remember much of the night, but when I woke up, she was in bed next to me. My body went cold. A night out, a drunken mistake, and now a baby." He swallowed hard. "I didn't tell you because I didn't even know if anything happened. I never spoke to her again. I didn't even remember her name." I felt sick. "Baby, you should." I don't even know if I would have let him explain himself. "So what, D? You thought if you ignored it, it wouldn't be real." He didn't say anything, and that's when I knew. He didn't think he'd ever get caught. The next 3 days felt like a blur. I went through the motions of my final dress fitting, the wedding rehearsal, the last minute seating changes, but inside I was numb. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that this had been nothing short of a mistake, a one night stand that meant nothing. But that wasn't the part that shattered me. It was the lies. He had carried this secret for almost a year, smiling in my face, holding my hand, planning a life with me, all while knowing there was a chance another woman had given birth to his child. He had looked me in the eyes and let me believe we were starting fresh. But now our marriage wouldn't just be about us. There was another life involved, a child. And more than anything, I couldn't shake the doubt. If Daniel was truly innocent, why did it feel like he was still hiding something? The night before the wedding, I sat alone in my hotel room, staring at my wedding dress hanging in the corner. I thought about the months of planning, the thousands of dollars spent, the people who had traveled from all over the country to watch me marry this man, and yet all I could feel was betrayal. Because how could I promise forever to a man who had it in his heart to do something so cruel? How could I ever trust that he wouldn't lie to me again? That was the moment I knew I was not going to marry him. The morning of the wedding, I made the announcement. Some gasped. Some tried to convince me to reconsider, but my heart was already set. Daniel tried to beg me to stay. He swore he would take responsibility, that he never meant to hurt me, that he wanted to fix things, but I had already spent too much time believing in him. I walked away from the venue alone, my dress still hanging in my hotel room unworn. And as painful as it was, as humiliating as it felt to cancel everything last minute, I knew I had made the right choice. Because marrying D wouldn't have been a wedding, it would have been a sentence. What would you have done? Could you forgive him, or would you have walked away too? I need to know y'all's answers in the comments. I already know what I'm going to do. Okay, baby? Ain't no second thoughts, no questions. I don't even know if it would have been no explanations. Soon as I saw that picture, you don't show up at the wedding. I'm going to be there. I'll tell everybody. We're going to still have a party. All the food is paid for. I'm going to eat some good food. Bye. Story 5. He met his new wife on our honeymoon. Mr. Mark Arthur back there couldn't have thought. Imagine going on your honeymoon with the person you love, only to find out years later that it wasn't just a romantic getaway for the two of you. It was the moment your partner met the person they'd been secretly building a future with behind your back. What would you do if this happened to you? Because I never saw it coming. I thought I knew everything about Armand. We had been together for 6 years, celebrating birthdays, holidays, anniversaries, and everything in between. I believed we had the kind of love that could withstand anything. And then we went on our honeymoon. A beautiful, sun-drenched beach town a week away from work, stress, and everyday life. A chance for us to soak in the joys of being newlyweds. Or at least, that's what I thought. That morning, Armand said he was going to the gym. I barely looked up from my book when he left. I was just happy he was keeping up with his routine, even on our honeymoon. But the gym wasn't where our story unraveled. Because that morning, Armand met Quintella. Quintella assumed Armand was alone, and he never corrected her. She was there on her last day at the resort, soaking in every moment. And when they got to talking, Armand realized something. He didn't have to sneak around. He didn't have to worry about me catching him because by the time anything could happen, she'd be gone. That made it easy, so he went along with it, flirted, laughed, made himself seem so available that Quintella never even thought to ask if there was someone waiting for him upstairs. And by the time he came back to our room, I could tell something was off. Armand was always the one planning our days on trips like this. He loved to be out, to explore, to drag me on new adventures. But that day he came back from the gym and said he wasn't feeling well. I think I need to rest, he told me. Maybe just stay in the room for today. I was worried at first, but he didn't seem that sick, just distracted, like his mind was somewhere else. I didn't know that while I was sitting on the balcony reading my book and enjoying the ocean breeze, he was in bed texting her. That woman that he had just met hours before. Days passed. We get home. Everything seemed normal again until little things changed. He was always on his phone, always sneaking away for work calls, always distant in a way I couldn't quite put my finger on. I didn't know then that even though Quintella had left the resort, she and Armand had stayed in touch. And then she found out about me. Maybe she saw an old post of us. Maybe she looked him up, but she found out. And she stayed. For 2 years, she stayed. This chick. While I planned date nights, she was getting his good morning text. While I was sitting across the room from him at dinner, she was sending him pictures. While I thought we were happily married, he was building a whole other life. I don't know if I could finish this one, y'all. My heart is beating too fast. It's beating a little too fast. Because me and my husband didn't even get married until we had dated for like 7 years. So this is a little too familiar for you, girl. But I'm going to keep going for y'all. I'm going to go for y'all. Okay. I might have never found out if it weren't for one mistake. 2 years after our honeymoon, I was searching for an old photo in Armand's messages when I stumbled across a text thread labeled Quintella with the little heart emoji. Ain't no way she got a heart emoji. Do you even got an emoji by his name? And that's when I saw it. Their conversations, their plans, the I love yous, the I can't wait to be with you, the soon baby, just wait a little longer. My teeth hurt. I felt my entire body go numb. 2 years. For 2 years, I have been sleeping next to a man who was secretly waiting for the right moment to leave me. And the only reason he hadn't, because I was his backup plan. I confronted him the same night. I held up his phone, my hand shaking, and asked him, who is she? His face drained of color, as it should. And in that moment, before he even opened his mouth, I knew I had lost him a long time ago. I wish I could say I screamed, that I threw things through. I wish I could say I screamed, that I threw his things out, that I made him hurt the way he had hurt me. But the truth, I just sat there. I sat there staring at this man I had loved for years and realized I had been in a relationship by myself. So I did the only thing I could do. I packed my bags, walked out the home we shared, and never looked back. Let me tell you, there is not a single fiber of my being that probably would have stayed sane. I would have probably threw everything that was mobile at the man of God. Because don't play with me. He see me looking at him. He know I'm talking to him. Don't play with me. What y'all doing? I already know what I'm doing. That's the non-negotiable for me, babe. Okay? You already know. And I'm not leaving. Me and your kid gonna be here. And you got to go. Anyway, those were our 5 stories in Love and Betrayal today. Make sure y'all drop a comment. Tell me what y'all doing. Because reading these stories makes me think I might be a little crazy. Love y'all. Bye.